Welcome to Women in Public Safety Podcast, where real life meets raw truth. I'm your host, Harriet Westmore. I'm a state parole officer dedicated to unraveling human complexities through true life cases, what we will call case chronicles. Join me weekly as we explore gripping narratives from the front lines of law enforcement and social services, from triumph to despair. We will uncover human resilience, vulnerability, and lastly, of course, justice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow us on social media for the latest episodes and to join in the movement for change. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another segment of Women in Public Safety Podcast. This is the podcast where we as women are recognized through our challenges and triumphs as first responders professionals, whether you work in law enforcement, whether you work in corrections, whether you work in social services, or medical, any profession that you serve the public. And I want to welcome you. And today's visitor is my grand dog. His name is Ace. So if you see him in the background, that's who he is. He's usually a good dog. He won't bark or anything. He'll just find somewhere to sit down and just kind of chill out with me. So, all right. Today is going to be a case chronicle day. I wanted to talk about how we as first responders, women, treat other women who may be in a crisis mode, or victims or complainants or witnesses, whatever the case may be. For me, working in parole, if I have a female woman on my caseload, how do we as women treat another woman who are in these type of positions for whatever reason they have been in through the court system? And, whatever their crime or offense were, they were placed on community control, which is probation, or if they went to prison, were incarcerated, and now are on parole on a certain amount of time of supervision. And how do we treat, as a female in authority, how do we treat another offender who has happened to be female? I wanted to talk about this because I know I've heard and experienced how they treat the women who are in these type of predicaments. A lot of times it's not a positive treatment. Case in point, I remember when I first became a field parole officer, and I was given a caseload, and I had a certain female who was on my caseload. Her crime was, or her offense that she was placed on parole was for Medicaid fraud. Apparently, she was charging services. She was running home health care business and was sending charges to the state that they allege wasn't being truthful in the services that she was providing. She had to pay back a certain amount of money back to the state. And so she was placed on supervision for a short period of time. And when I inherited the case, I didn't know her, but I inherited from another parole officer. And from the conversations from another officer, they were saying that, she's very difficult. I mean, not very difficult, but she was not pleasant to deal with. As they said, she always had an attitude, and I'm using air quotes for those who are just listening. So it was time for me to meet her because she had to do an annual assessment. We do annual assessments to determine what type of supervision level that our parolees or probationers will be, whether it be low supervision, moderate, or high, or very high. So during that assessment, you ask a bunch of background questions. You ask about what they're doing now, if they were working, all these factors. If there's any drug or alcohol issues, all those factors play into what type of supervision, how many times of contact that we will have between myself and the parolee. Well, I spoke with her on the phone. I scheduled the appointment for her to come into the office. And when I met her, when she came into the office on the scheduled date, we sat down and I told her who I am, because she assumed that it was another previous officer that was going to do the assessment. But I introduced myself and told her who I was, and that I now have her case. She's now on my caseload. And I, told her about the assessment of what it entails and everything. And there was no pressure off. You just tell me truthfully what the answer, so I can adequately. And when I've always had a preconceived notion of how I think she was going to be, I thought she was going to be very, just challenging and very difficult to talk to, and just with a lot of anger and hostility and with attitude. But she wasn't like that at all. Matter of fact, she was very pleasant. You can tell she was very educated. And when I asked her, what happened concerning the incident, she just told me she had a family, she was a caregiver, and she assigned I don't know, it was a family member as one of the caregivers to do a home health care visit to one of her clients. I guess the service wasn't getting done, but she took full responsibility of what happened. And immediately after, when she saw that I wasn't judging her, I wasn't coming on at her as interrogating her or anything, but I was just having a conversation with her, I think both our guards just kind of went down. And she, revealed that, because of this case and this incident, it's hard to her to find employment. She did have a college education, and she did have a medical background. And I asked her, some of the questions were, how much support does she receive from family or friends, or and how satisfied was she with the support that she does receive? She said she received a lot of support through her church, regularly goes to church, and her church family has been very supportive of her. But, she said it's just been hard to find adequate employment. And in order for her to pay back the restitution that she's had through the courts, she has to have a job, and she couldn't find a job and make payments on her restitution. So just talking with her, I offered her words of encouragement. I knew what her background was as far as her credentials, and I gave her a tip. I said, well, with your background, even though you have this particular case, you still could do this portion. You might be interested in trying to apply for this type of licensure according to the state guidelines and rules. I gave her the information about that particular piece of what she can opportunity that she could pursue, and it's still within her education realm, and she still be working in the medical field, although it'll be a different type. And so I just gave her, encouraged her. And so we finished the assessment, we finished the interview. And I think maybe a month or maybe two later, she came back. I mean, it was not a scheduled appointment or anything, but she came back, and the receptionist called me, and I knew that we didn't have an appointment. She didn't call me or anything, but I just happened to have been in the office. I wasn't in the field. When I went to see her, she just said, I just wanted to come personally to thank you for listening to me and treating me like a human being, and also giving me that bit of information about pursuing maybe another opportunity, because it did pan out. She went and got credentialed in another area of that's still in the mental health or social services field, let's put it that way. And she was able to go a different route than what she was doing before. But the point of it is, we can't always judge people by what's on paper. You've got to understand the circumstances. And for women correctional officers, women who are in the medical field, women who are in social services, particularly, sometimes a lot of us have I don't want to say disdain, but a resentment when another woman is in a predicament. And a lot of times, yes, they are in it because they just, if it's just a cycle, then you can't help everybody. But if you talk to them and really try to understand what the root is of the problem, you can probably figure out where it all started
because we as women, we like to talk, and we can kind of engage and build a rapport with other women, and women can feel that you are willing to listen. And then there's a lot, if you're, come in with an authoritative tone and have an attitude, and don't really care about them one way or the other, then they're going to return that type of treatment towards you. But if you just sit down and just listen to what they're saying, a lot of it could be true or fabricated or not, but you have to have that inner ability to kind of weed all the crap out and just really see where it's all coming from. And a lot of times, especially when it's those who are in drug cases, a lot of times, I've been doing this for long enough to know a lot of the women who have drug abuse cases, it stems from either was turned on to it by their partner at the time, or because of trauma that occurred when they were young, and they try to do whatever they can to mask and to try to deal with that trauma that they experience as type of abuse that they experienced as when they were young by any means, and that could be drugs or alcohol. And that's usually the case, or just the partner, person that they were with at the time, their boyfriends or whoever they were with at the time, or crowd that they was running around with at the time. But there, like I said, there's always an underlying root of where it came from, and sometimes you got to dig and peel the layer of the onion and get to the actual root of why they are in the position that they are now. And then, like I said, some of them, a lot of them you can, help, but they're going to have to want to make that step to help themselves. And with this particular lady that I had, you can tell that it was her first offense. She's never been on any type of paper, go through the courts or anything like that. She was very active in her church, but just made wrong decisions and really got hemmed up in something that was fraudulent that you could have been avoided. So, but the fact that I gave her information for her to kind of it was very heartbreaking to see that you just feel like there was no hope. There was no hope, and I can tell. And she said, I appreciate you, giving me the motivation I want to work, and I want to try to find something that can, and to treat me like a human being. And the education piece, the credential piece that she could have pursued in spite of what she was going through, she actually followed through and looked into it, and decided to go that route. So, but that's it for today. That's my case chronicle. If you have similar cases like this, or any other cases that stands out to you as a woman in public who works in public safety, please email me at publicsafetybywomen@gmail.com. And let's just be mindful. A lot of our women who are in crisis or on the other side of the law, so to speak, it came from somewhere. And I'm not saying it didn't for men, but I'm talking from woman to woman. It came from somewhere. There's the root to the cause, and there's a cause and effect. And sometimes if you just sit back and just listen to their story and talk to them, you can tell which ones who are really trying to do the right thing and trying to move on and try to move forward from their life. And if you can, offer that extra help or that extra motivation to do so, that makes a world of difference. All right. So don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And please, if you on any podcast platform, please hit subscribe. And I will talk with you next week. You guys take care and be safe.